I am on Mastodon. So if you have not made the move into the Fediverse yet, quick slide there is that basically it's a federated social media platform that is, the Mastodon is kind of like Twitter. There's copies of all the other major ones. And if you're sick and tired of big social media telling you what you can and cannot do, come on over to Mastodon. All right. Neurodiversity. Here's what we're talking about. So let's talk about what is neurodiversity. Neurodiversity as a concept is this idea that we don't have disorders and syndromes. We have a range of capabilities. And those ranges are being discovered as we learn more about how we work. So that's what neurodiversity means. It's the whole concept of everybody here in this room thinks a little bit differently. Right now, with modern healthcare, we like to put labels on it, but that's what neurodiversity is as a concept. Now, as a movement, which kind of started around the 90s, is the idea that we need to adjust our world for everyone. Empathy, understanding, making sure that we understand that that people are not broken, that need to be fixed. The world needs to be fixed. And so that is the movement of neurodiversity versus the concept of neurodiversity. So let's kind of dive into some of these syndromes and disorders, right? So we've got ADHD, typically the most prevalent of the neurodiversity, but the autism crowd comes in nice and loud. I love my autistic brothers and sisters. I've got two of them as myself, and I myself have got ADHD and dyslexia. Other things are like Tourette's. My son here has Tourette's. It's both a neurological disorder that keeps his legs and arms moving. Also, he's got some, verbal tics and whatnot. But he is as I've learned more about Tourette's and have his kid, he is fully in the neurodiverse world, neurodivergent, and we see the world very similar. Even though I've got ADHD and he has Tourette's. So as we go in, you'll see the how these intertwine. You got some statistics here, and showing you how different, how much prevalent. If you kind of add all these up, obviously the Venn diagram overlaps quite a bit. When you have multiple diagnoses, comorbidity. There we go. Is prevalent. Typically you have multiple disorders or syndromes. But if you add all these up, you're looking at probably around 15, 20, maybe 25% of the world. And so what does that mean when it comes to trying to map this stuff out? And we use the words neurodivergence, neurotypical, neuroatypical, neurodiversity. I liked this diagram. It's kind of helps us use these words in very specific meanings. So for most people, neurodiversity is everyone, all right? And then neurodivergent are not normal compared to everyone else. That's the typical language. And I'm using the typical language that might be offensive to some, but just want to make sure that my point is clear, that the neurotypical is a group of folks that that we basically have helped set the rules on how society works. And then we've got, the autistic folks that have been around forever. If anybody thinks that ADHD and autistic is new, you should do some more studying. I mean, go and look at any train museum, and you'll find the autistics have been, helping us learn very detailed information about all sorts of stuff forever. And so that is definitely a huge component of it. But neurodivergent includes more than just the autistics. And we are going to look through that and explore. And what does that mean in our space? So if you are new to neurodivergence, let's talk about some of the differences in how we perceive the world. Come on, there we go. Let's get this sucker moving. All right. So, and I know I'm right in front of the screen, but so take a look at this image and ask yourself, is the column rotating, or are the dots moving from one side to the other? And now don't worry if they switch back and forth. Often our brain perceives both, and what we're trying to do is settle on what the meaning of this picture is. Now, the difference between the two translations of the dot to the column depends on how you interpret the layers. If you see separate moving sheets, you're focusing on one shade and then the other, and picking them out in distinct detail. A very detailed-oriented view. But when the brain zooms out and sees the bigger picture, you might perceive this as a rotating column. This is from a study. This is good old-fashioned science, right? And this is one of the ways that we can actually measure neurodivergence. This isn't a concept that is without hard science. We have ways of measuring different types of perceptions, and those ways are improving. Here's another example. This we're going to go through this. This is a concept called sensory gating, and let's see if I'm going to see if I can get that started for you, and just try to follow along. See if the audio is going to work. Let's see.
All right, so today I'm going to talk about four things. These are the four critical things to remember. The first relates to how we make mystery. For me, it's kind of strange because the second thing is perception. The third thing is memory. The fourth thing is knowledge. That's going to change. I'll warn you. So what I did was I did a lot of checks serial knowledge. I got to check serial magic. What are the big four? And that made it really great because that way I could eat perceptions, memory tricks, and knowledge for my friends. You know what I mean? Okay.
Was that tough? So if you want to look this up, it's called the cocktail party effect, and it's one of the more blatant, obvious examples of sensory gating. Sensory gating is a good example of how neurodivergent folks have problems in discerning what is usable data and what isn't. Neurotypicals or neurodivergents and autistics in particular, tend to take in a more pure version of our world. They will hear and see the various different things that neurotypicals will filter out. And while you're at a party and you can listen to one person talking, a neurotypical person might not have that same, might have challenges being able to discern because of the different audio streams going on. Again, another way of between audio and visual, ways that we can measure and kind of know whether or not you fit into this neurodivergent world. Pretty please. Where's my icon? I don't have. There we go. All right. So that's the right slide. All right, good. So I wanted to call out, is obviously we have some challenges, but there are some really good reasons why, if you are autistic or if you as a leader would like to hire an autistic. And these are a few of the superpowers. It's really interesting that for me, I've raised two autistic boys and have worked with several. My father was in mental health, so this has been a part of my life in different roles: parent, friend, teacher, son. And seeing the differences firsthand is quite striking. And if you don't have the type of life experience that allows you to interact with these folks, let me highlight some of the kind of bonuses that you get by being an autistic. So visual hypersensitivity is a better visual pattern recognition. Now that kind of goes counteraction to the sensory gating, but the skills that autistics learn to be able to survive in this world, to do that pattern recognition, isn't a second nature, and so therefore it can be a much stronger muscle because they have to exercise it. Tunnel vision, focus of attention, color intensity, and we'll get on to sensory situations later. I have completely lost there it is. Got an icon, all right. Synesthesia, I cannot pronounce this morning. There we go, thank you. All right. So I like this one because I had some good statistics. 18 to 19%, 18.9% of autistic people compared to 7.2% in the control group. And this is where the perceiving multiple senses simultaneously. So being able to actually listen, see, smell, touch, the ability to do that is actually stronger in autistics than in neurotypicals. And I can go on. I also like showing off the ADHD superpowers because this is my bucket, right? This is probably, this is a lot more prevalent in nature and is more prevalent in the technology industry. We tend to thrive in the type of environment that ADHD, unlocks in our brains. So some of this hyperfocus, this is the great frustration of my parents and psychologists, me growing up, is that I couldn't pay attention to anything unless I wanted to, and then I didn't pay attention to anything else. This type of hyperfocus is something that can be a very huge boon. People like programmers that need to focus on something and execute it for long periods of time. Creative people that need to focus on their world and the world that they're creating. Other superpowers to call out is the out-of-box thinking, multitasking. I always feel like I'm not doing anything if I'm only doing one thing at a time. Occasionally I'll be sitting in my office or at my home office and no phone call, nothing to do, but just like I've got to do this report. And I'm just like, I can't do that, right? Some people go to TV, radio. I'm on conference calls all the time, so there's usually somebody talking in my ear. So multitasking is the normal mode for most folks that are neurodivergent. Resilience, open to feedback. The research on the open to feedback and thick skin was pretty interesting because it's one of these things where you are until you're not. So a lot of these will be on the extremes, right? Where you have the power to really, thrive on that particular aspect until the situation isn't right, and then that becomes your weakness. Happens quite often. All right, so if we're all perfect, then what's the problem? Why aren't we all hiring and saying, I need more ADHD people, I need more autistics? Well, we do have some challenges. So we're going to go through this video, and I will give a warning here. This video simulates what sensory overload is like for an autistic person. This may be disturbing for anybody that has visual or any type of sensory issues, and so just giving that fair warning. This may be hard to listen to and watch for some people, and I hope to be able to maximize it. Let's see if I can figure out where my little get over. Let's see here if I can. Oh, maybe not.
Just wait there 1 minute. I'm just going to get a ticket, okay? Alex, just 1 minute. Just breathe. That's it. Just keep breathing, calming down. Okay. Okay, see everything's fine now? Yeah? Right. Let's go home.
I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
This is a world that is challenging for a lot of us and that are neurodiverse. And let's see if I can figure out how to go forward. There we go. So So yes, we have lots of challenges. This world has lots of sensory inputs, and that can overwhelm a lot of us. Some of us are sensory seeking. We do better when we have more sensory input. Some of us are sensory avoiding, and we need the quiet, and we need to not have all those sensory attacks on all the different levels. And so finding those is part of growing up, and is something that each neurodivergent person typically finds by the time they hit working age. So this isn't a parenting class. We're talking about neurodiversity in the workforce. So you're probably going to be, either in the workforce yourself or supporting people that are of working age. And so what does that translate to when it comes to, how this sensory processing disorder and the other challenges listed up here is present in the workplace? And it's the realization that you've got people in your team, friends and colleagues, that may have these sensory challenges. And the education is part of this journey in being able to accept and bring more neurodivergent people into our fold. We need to be able to understand these type of situations, and when we hear that somebody's having a crisis, a sensory processing crisis, or some type of situation in which they need to exit, empathy is the word of the day, right? Is that we need to understand that people are coming from different places, and it's not that we're broken, is that, man, these lights are loud. Or, man, that, women with their pointy shoes and the knocking, and just, I can hear it for hours. And it reminds me of this thing that was, happened to me as a kid, and really just brings in all these smells, because it was at the ocean, and it was very powerful. And now I'm no longer in the meeting. So why would you hire somebody that has so many problems, right? 35% of 18-year-olds with autism, only 35% of 18-year-olds with autism attend college. And of those, only 15% that graduate. As a result, nearly 80% of young adults with autism work part-time, earning an average of $9.11. I know that our neurodivergent folks are much more capable, and they're going to be much happier producing and being a part of your workforce. So how can we make that happen? Why would you want to make it happen? So this is the results of the research I was able to do. There's a number of programs that got launched over the last 10, 15, 20 years or so, and we're starting to see some results. Harvard Business Review came up with a preliminary results of a program at SAP that produced over 30% more productivity over a long period of time. And even happier than that is over at JP Morgan and Chase, who's had a program going on longer. They're able to see over a 5-year period much more productivity from their neurodivergent folks. It seems like an easy win, right? These people are dedicated, they're hardworking, they're very intelligent, can think in ways that we can't even conceive, and why would we not want to have them on our team? I love the headline here with this company called Ultra Testing. They went full, whole hog and decided that they are going to staff full of autistics, and it's been a great win for them. And then we've got a Neurodiversity in the Workplace is a program. It's one of the staffing agencies we'll talk about in a minute. They are seeing 94% retention rates. So that when they place neurodivergent folks into jobs, they're happy. All right, so let's get to the meat of this, attracting neurodiverse talent. Now this is an approach by, let's see, I'm going to Deloitte. This is the Deloitte study. So in this Deloitte study is basically breaks down the ways that we can make our workforce, our employment, a equitable and inviting place for neurodivergence. And so this is a plan that you can either, if you are a leader, you can help instill, or if you are an individual contributor, being able to bring this forward. You don't have to be the boss to make the world that you live in a better place, right? You can implement this even if you do not control everything at your job. And you might just make somebody's life a little bit easier. So first off, revisiting the hiring process. The first bullet there, I think, is casting a wider net. So if we think about where do we recruit most places, I work for a big company. We recruit from large universities. We have big programs because we hire lots of people. But that is where only 15-18% of autistics are going to schools, and so finding schools that are more welcoming and more give more to our neurodivergent folks is something that you have to do intentionally. You have to go out there and find those programs, and it may not be college programs, right? High school, a lot of these folks have the skills and to be able to hit the workforce right out of high school. So looking at high schools that that cater and teach to our neurodivergence folks is a good start. Next is rethinking screening criteria. I think we're all in the same boat here. I don't know too many people in the security space that aren't sick and tired of the you need 25 years of experience for this entry-level job, right? That's a common trope. So it affects us in security, but other people are surprised to see this type of stuff all the time. The types of things that we filter on to keep bad, unqualified applicants out of our pool is things that HR has been doing for a while. Is also filtering out our neurodivergent folks. And so having that talk with HR, figuring out what are they looking at, are they insisting that they have a degree? Can you get a degree or work experience? Because it's not so much, what have you done? Like I've got a 30-year career. That doesn't mean I can go and do everything right away, right? The point is to find the criteria that says, can you do the things we need you to do now? Reimagine the interview process. So the process of putting on a suit, going down to a big building, waiting in a lobby to be called, and then going into a room full of people that know what they're doing, and they're all going to grill you for the next hour, is intimidating to neurotypicals. It is even more so to a lot of us neurodivergent folks that do not understand that level of scrutiny and can have problems with that type of interview. So think about that as you're going into it. Think about the interviews that you're having and how you're filtering out people just by the way that you interview folks. All right, next up is to create a conductive work environment. There we go. So respecting people's individuals and communication work styles. This is being able to understand that not everybody is going to be able to produce a 10-slide deck every Friday as part of their status report, right? Not everybody's going to have those capabilities. Now, I was joking when I put this slide deck together that I was going to do this entire deck without saying AI. I'm gonna break my own rule here because to me, AI is a very exciting, and in particular Gen AI, the LLMs is a very exciting technology in the realm of neurodiversity in work. The ability to speak and communicate in text and other type of formats, many people look at that as your skill set, right? I'm up here talking to you, you're judging me on how well I'm talking, and it's my communication. It's not about my skills or my knowledge, it's about my ability to communicate. So often are we judging on that skill alone and not the content of the work. So if their job is to write code, and they can't write a paper about it, then don't make them write a paper about it. But now this is when I get to say, hey, we got AI now. AI can help us write that paper, help us write those emails, help us write those reports, summarize the data we just did. Hey, I just wrote 1,000 lines of code, it does all this great stuff, but I just can't put it in ways that my CISO really pays attention to. AI, LLMs is going to be that technology that helps level the playing field on the level of communication. So there's your positive AI. Everybody else will scare you and tell you that AI is going to make the world burn, but I'm telling you that it'll definitely help out us neurodivergent folks. In fact, I used it quite a bit in preparing this deck. Now, one thing to do know about LLMs, if you haven't heard this over and over, you just can't trust them, right? So I go and ask questions of Gemini and all the different LLMs, and I'm saying, hey, give me some different ideas to put on this deck. But I have to go and confirm those, because it's just a mathematical formula putting words together. And sometimes it does a better job than I do, and sometimes it just makes shit up. And you don't want to get up here and just say, hey, 80% of people have ADHD. something that's not really the truth. So whatever you do with the LLM, until we get to a point where we can trust it, don't. All right, back to our regular scheduled programming. So offer work, the lovely one here, flexibility and inflexibility. Work schedules and work environment is very important. We'll go into that in the next slide. But just the concept of knowing that some people thrive off of random work situations. I used to be a consultant. Every day I'd get up and go to the airport and go to a different city, and that I thrived in. And that's because I've got that ADHD flavor. That's the type of environment that I thrive in. Other people need to go to the same place, same desk, same lighting, same fire truck that goes by every day. And that is part of their routine. So you need to be able to find and support those. If you want that talent in your workforce, you'll need to be able to support that. Not too many people in info security is really down on working from home. Is there anybody? I like both, but it's definitely something we have to take into account. All right, so now that we've got people in, we've got a pretty good environment for them, how do we make sure that they stay? We have to talk to them, we have to measure them differently, right? We have to understand that the level of work that they do may be that the level that the work that they're going to do for the next 30 years. That's fine. If they're happy, you talk to them about their goals and where they want to go. One of the teams that I manage right now in my day job is a firewall policy management team. As I work for a big company, I have about 20 people. All they do is firewall policy. And some of them, they've been doing that for like 20 or 30 years. And they love it. So find those folks, and if that's what they want to do, don't say, hey, you've got to go. You've been working here for 10, 15, 20 years. Have you thought about management? I'm sure I'm hearing some laughing, so you probably have had that conversation, right? You need to get into management. There's nowhere else for you to go. You're already a senior engineer. You already run everything. You've written half of the shell scripts in this company. Now we need you to be a manager. And you're like, I don't think so. So we need to make sure that we have a path for folks that do not have any interest in the standard neurotypical path. We need to be able to give them the feedback that they need in the manner that they need it. Mentorship, friendship, that kinship, being able to understand that not only do I hear that I'm doing a good job, but I'm hearing that from somebody that truly understands what a good job means to me. And so take that back and think about that. If you're a manager and you give feedback, you give one-on-ones, do you think about that? Do you tailor your approach for the individual and make them feel what you're trying to communicate, right? If you are happy with their work and you are pleased that they are part of your team, make sure that they feel that. Do a quick time check, 9:30, okay. All right, and then, like I said, this is Deloitte. This has got an actual great PDF. If you want to take this to work, very actionable stuff. Another actionable research project I found. This is from, I think, Research at Bath. Yeah, there we go. University of Bath over in the United Kingdom. So steps: sensory, timely, explicit, predictable, social. Good way of remembering it. So this is a workbook that you could use at work to kind of go through these and compare yourself, right? We all love doing. All right, who here's in GRC? All right, so he's got the spreadsheet. He's going to be filling it out for everyone, right? You're going to audit us. So this is another spreadsheet, another framework for you to compare yourself to, right? It's not a NIST, but it's still very useful. So you take a looking at the sensory environment. So we talked about that. What areas do you have where people that are sensory seeking can do their work? What areas in your office do you have that are sensory avoiding? Can they do their work? If you start there, you'll open your eyes to realize that having a mix of opportunities of places to work is key. Most of us that in the neurodivergent field don't like the open office. Typically, that is too much sensory information for us to be effective. So understanding that if you can't provide, hey, I'm a company and I bought this space to put my office in, and I'm not going to be putting up any walls. If you've got neurodivergent folks, you're going to need to have them work from home, or find another type of situation to make them happy. I often come in, work in a fusion center, SOC, and I love coming in second shift because if we wait till all the executives leave, everybody turns off the lights and we just have our little desk lamps and get by in that low sensor area. Timely environment, all right? Do you give that person enough time to do their tasks, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get things done, but you end up getting them done and they're higher quality. So making sure that you understand what takes one person, a day to do or a couple hours might take a neurotypical longer, but they're going to do it better and probably in a much more sustainable way. There you go. Explicit environment. I get a lot of feedback from the people that I manage at work, and they tell me that I communicate in a very different way. And I said, well, I've got 8 kids, and they're all on the neurodivergent, and so making sure that I'm clear is very important to my survival. There's more of them than there are of me, and so making sure that I'm very explicit. Right? There's no wiggle room, right? And it's like I have to tell my kids all the time, I'm asking you to do this, is what's coming out of my mouth, but what I mean is, you have to do it. You have to talk that way to some of our coworkers, right? We have to make sure that we're clear. If you assume everybody knows what you mean by think out of the box, you're wrong. So look at your language and make sure that you're explicit with your neurodivergent folks. Predictable environment. This is also key. I've already touched on that. And then finally, the social environment. So socialness is an aspect of the environment that must be measured, and you need to kind of be intentful. Do you intend your folks to mull around and talk? If you've ever worked on the vendor side and you've got both a sales team and a technical team, go check out their offices, between the programmers and the sales team, right? Very different social environment. So you need to be intentional about that and understand what is going to make people feel welcome and comfortable, right? The programmers like to turn off their lights, put the headphones on, do their job, and go home for the day. And that might be good enough. The fact that they're not hanging around the water cooler and talking about the sports ball thing that happened this weekend, right? They don't care, or they might not care, and that might be okay. So let's not measure them and make sure that that's not a part of their expectations at work, that they be like us. All right. So I've got, as I wrap things up here, I wanted to give everybody some references and some places to go for being able to take next steps. Because I really think this is very important. As I've done this study, I've realized that a lot of work has been done over the last 20, 30 years. I myself am Gen X, and I was reading a study that talked a lot about how Gen X paved the way for neurodiversity, but millennials are making it real. That the millennials and the new generations that's coming in are the ones that are really going to help us realize this. So all of us old folks that maybe help us set up what neurodiversity looks for us in our family or in our company right now, right? Who is going to execute that is going to be the next generation, and they understand and conceptualize the diversity in a much better way. And so working with the different generations and getting their input and making sure that you understand that that the younger folks might get this stuff easier than you do is an important learning concept. Even though I've raised all these kids, I'm not an expert. I still screw things up, right? And I learn and I listen. If any of you ever do any other DEI work, the diversity, inclusion, and equity, you hear this often. You've got to listen, right? I'm white, cis, male. Well, I'm neurodivergent. Otherwise, I'm just boring, right? And so when I go to DEI meetings and I'm listening, right? I don't know what it's like to grow up Black or Asian in the South. I have an idea. I was next to them as I was growing up, but my world experience is different than somebody else's world experience. So we get this when we're talking about race and we talk about background, but somehow a lot of people seem to forget it when we're talking about neurodiversity, and they think that this is just some type of ploy, and it gets politicized. So what we got to do is make sure that we understand and we listen and take empathy down as the word if you take anything away from this, hopefully it'll be the word empathy. So a couple programs here, Neurodiversity Hub, a great place to get those programs started. For me, as I was putting together this program, I've been wanting to do this talk for a while. And I'm so excited about all the resources available. And I am so absolutely going, as soon as I get back to work, I'm going to the head of HR and I'm going to ask to start my own neurodiversity company, a neurodiversity program at my company, right? We've got great DI, we have a disability, what's called business resource group, right, internally. And so I'm sure that's where I will be shuffled over, but that, having a program and being able to say, we're taking specific steps to move forward is so exciting. And if you'll look at some of these resources, they make it so easy for you. They give you the material, they give you the reasons why, and hopefully that will make things stick in your workplace. So let's say that you're not a leader, you are neurodivergent, and you're trying to make it in this world. All right? Just know that information security is a great place to be. You probably have already felt that. Neurodivergence. I'm not gay, but I know that the gaydar thing exists. I also think that the neurodivergent dar. Oh, we got to come up with a better word. But seriously, are you ever sitting around and you're like, "Hey, I'm part of my people," right? My son here, just about 2 years ago, said, "Hey, Dad, I'd like to start doing coin collecting." I'm like, "All right, well, let's go find some coin collecting." He's a coin collector now. Man, you get in here, all these old people, actually all generations, from his age all the way up, everybody's on the spectrum. It's just great. They're like, these are my people, right? You've got really, these are my people. And so that instance of I found my tribe. If you haven't found your tribe yet, you're here, you're like, I like the people I'm hanging out with. I want to be more of this, right? Here are some resources for you. These, some of them are pure job boards, right? They go out to companies and say, hey, companies, come place your jobs with me. If you are have a neurodivergence program and you're specifically looking for people with autism or some other type of situation, then they have those. Others are resources, and I've got over here support groups. I am from Georgia, but this is the link for the Tennessee. Every state has a state vocational rehab. And if you are in your any part of your career, and you have challenges with mental disabilities, on the spectrum, physical, this is the place to go that will help you navigate all the different resources in your state to kind of help you get a job. So very bureaucratic heavy, but worth going through if you haven't gone through, if you need some help getting some traction. And then these others here are other different programs and groups that have either local meetings and meetups to help people just survive the world and be happy. So I really hope that everybody had a good time this morning. Thank you all for 9 a.m. first, you walked all the way down here. I'm just so happy to have you all here, and that you take away from this that if you are neurodivergent, you're not alone, and if you're not, if you don't realize how much the neurodivergence is prevalent in our space, you need to open your eyes. And if you have not started adjusting your environment and your workforce to make life better for us neurodivergents, you need to do so quickly, because this is the way that we are going to help make sure that we can find the talent to take us into the next generation. So I appreciate everybody's time this morning. Thank you.
Okay, so here I'll take questions actually. Let me just open it up by asking, you talked about what we can do in an office setting for folks that have sort of sensory overload issues, but you also mentioned that some folks can be sort of sensory seeking. Are there things that we can do other than let people work from home, but in office settings that can facilitate sensory seeking folks?
It's a good question. You know, it's one of these where figuring out how that sensory seeking person can get that and be flexible. Standing desks, walking desks, being able to, for me, I put my headphones on, I walk around, I need to be kinesthetic to trigger my brain. You know, finding those things. In school, we used to have an IEP, and we would make the teachers say, "Hey, this, you know, my son's got Tourette's. He needs to get up and walk around. He can't sit still." We carry that forward to work, right? When he goes to get a job, he's going to need to be able to have that accommodation. And so, so just put yourself in that thought. If this was back in the school setting, we would be making our teachers do it. Why can't we do this in the work setting as well?
So if anybody has any questions, raise your hand. What we're going to do is you'll shout them out, and then to make sure it gets on the recording, I will repeat the question before you answer.
All right. And I'm absolutely open to feedback, right? This is my first time giving this talk. I came across a lot of new information that I only learned in like the last week or two. I probably don't know it all. If there's other resources that you'd like to add, I'm going to be giving this at other B-sides. I'd love to have your feedback. If I got something wrong, let me know. You said the feedback on Sketch on the website, or today on the phone, or on the microphone if you like.
You talked a lot about this on the employer side, but what are some good ways to basically present yourself to be a better job candidate?
Yeah.
So the question, sorry, I just want to make sure we get this on the recording. The question is, what are ways that you can present yourself to be a better job candidate?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. There's a lot of content in this, and figuring out what to skip over and fit into a reasonable amount of time. But one of the topics I looked into was talking about it at work, right? Do you say, hey, I've got autism. I'm an autistic. I have ADHD. I've got Tourette's. I've got a learning disorder. I've got dyslexia. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's going to be the culture of the company, right? Large corporations tend to have a lot more protections in place, while smaller companies, it's more of a roll of the dice. You're going to be beholden of a fewer number of people that might have different prejudices. And so you're going to have to do that research to see, hey, is this a company that is going to understand and appreciate my gifts? Or is this some company that's going to hear that they're going to hire a crazy person? Or using words like mentally retarded. Things that will just is triggering. It's not a good place. So I always say this as general work advice anyway. Interview the company as much as they're interviewing you, right? You've got to find a place that you're going to be happy. That's the only way that's what we're here to do, is to be happy in this life. And so if you can't be happy in that world, that includes being, can you be yourself, or do you need to hide yourself? That's got to be part of the equation.
I think one of the questions too around this is like identifying if one is in the neurodivergent spectrum, or whatever you want to call it, and also identifying employees that are under that. Because I don't think a lot of people are probably too excited about you saying, "Oh, I think you're autistic," like specifically like. That's a challenge, right? Because people obviously follow these spectrums, but how do you identify if you're in that spectrum, or employees are? So I think that's a big challenge to embrace all that.
So the question is about, identifying folks versus sort of singling yourself out, but also identifying folks that we would like to include with some of these things.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And it kind of hits on that topic too. Like, do you use the word autistic? Or do you use the word neurodivergent? Right? These might be less offensive words to some people, right? There's also an interesting divide of people that like to say people with autism versus autistic. And that's been a generational thing. The autistics that are growing up now are all embracing what's called people first language, to say, I'm autistic, I'm not a person with autism. That you might not hear the difference in that, but autistics do, and some people care really strongly one way or the other. And so while I try to go with the trends, hey, if the kids these days, if we're going to say, hey, you're autistic, as opposed to you're a person with autism, then that's the language I'm going to learn to use. But Yes, calling people out and asking people, how do you start that conversation? It's going to be very different, but I've had different experiences where you meet somebody, you kind of know, hey, this person seems like they're on my wavelength. I think they might be neurodivergent. And being able to drop in things like the word sensory. The word sensory is not used by neurotypicals, right? If you talk about, I've got this as a fidget, instead of saying I've got a fidget spinner, right? I use this to stim. This helps me relax. Being able to kind of open the kimono a little bit and say, hey, I'm one of you as well. Then you can open that and then be able to have those conversations. In the workplace, being able to ask about specific, medical situations is challenging, right? There are laws in place. I'm not going to say I'm HR and tell you what you can and can't say, but that might also be a challenge there. So again, asking if they have sensory challenges, or have or at least just telling a story about how you yourself have had sensory challenges and seeing how they respond, might be a better way of opening that door to let them admit to something instead of you trying to guess what they are, right? Just say, hey, I'm one of you. We could talk about this stuff, just like you would with anything else. I like geeky stuff too. I used to LARP. Do you know how geeky LARPing is, right? Everybody's like, oh, D&D, that's geeky. I'm like, yeah, but I went out and, hit people with sticks and pretended that I was an elf for all week long. That's even geeky. So you just don't want to admit that in certain company. Same thing that goes with the neurotypical stuff.
Okay, so I think we got time for one more question. If I could get you to come up, actually, it may be better for you to express yourself than for me to attempt to repeat it. If you.
Just as a manager, what are some of the ways unique ways you've been able to help your teams that are neurodivergent? Any specific example? Say like treadmill or something, but anything else that's helpful?
So the question is about, as a manager, listing specific ways that he's been able to help folks on his team.
The very specific one that's been most recent for me is the fight to go back into the office, right? That I work for a large bank, and so the other large banks want everybody into the office because they pay for all the stuff and they want you to go in and sit in. So being able to say that there are, we have, as part of the ADA, we have to accommodate people with disabilities. And I truly believe that working from home is a required thing for some neurodivergent folks. So that has been some of the battle. Some of the other stuff may seem like some lipstick on a pig or just glossing over typical stuff. But we've got kinesthetic things at work. I bought one of those little basketball things. I've got one of those big tic-tac-toe. We got a video game system set up, a ping pong ball. Most people, that could easily be put into a bucket of, oh, managers just doing silly manager stuff. But that the reality is that the people that can use that as part of the ability to get the kinesthetic needs or the sensory needs, I'm meeting their needs. Well, and so it's not just, hey, I want people to come back in the office, so I'm going to buy, a toy to play with. It's that, some of us really need that to have our brains work in the right way.
Okay, so I see there are some more folks with questions. I'm going to have to ask you to approach Xavier after the fact because we need to take a quick break before our next talk. Let's thank Xavier again real quick. That was excellent.